what we're seeing in the Middle East is a wave of new data protection laws emerging across multiple jurisdictions. But this is not happening in isolation. These developments are very much part of a broader plan across the region for digital transformation, economic diversification, and global competitiveness. So take Saudi Arabia. For example, it has a Vision 2030 strategy which aims to shift the economy away from oil and to turn the kingdom into a hub for tech, AI, data, and innovation. And similar efforts are being made in the UAE and Qatar, as well as some of the other countries in the region. And so, as governments roll out these new national digital strategies, they are recognizing that strong data governance and also public trust in how that data is handled is a critical foundation. So in the next few slides, I will walk you through how the laws are developing, where we're seeing alignment also with the GDPR and where the differences lie, and we'll also look at early signs of what enforcement looks like, so whether these laws actually have teeth. And then my great co-panelist, Renata, will then explore what this all means for businesses and compliance, and do feel free to chime in anytime. So,
is it loud enough in the room, or do we need to make it loud and do something?
Good?
Okay,
Yes.
we'll just
Yeah.
question.
Even closer?
Yeah.
Hello?
Okay.
Testing. Okay, good. So let me start with how the data protection landscape in the region has evolved. It's not been a steady or uniform journey. So historically, data protection in the Arab region was fragmented. It sat across constitutions, telecom laws, financial regulations, and criminal laws. In many countries, there were criminal penalties for misusing data, but there was no clear right for individuals or accountability for organizations. And that started to shift with the introduction of standalone data protection laws in financial free zones, so particularly in Dubai, in the Dubai International Financial Center in 2004, followed by the Qatar Financial Center in 2005, and then the Abu Dhabi Global Market in 2015. And for those who don't know what these zones are, they are independent jurisdictions. They're separate geographic areas established to attract international business. They operate under their own legal systems, and so these financial free zones were the first to adopt comprehensive data laws based on the EU framework at the time, which was the EU Data Protection Directive. Then in 2016, we saw Qatar introduce the first national data protection law for the Arab world, and that was followed by Bahrain in 2018. What's not on the slide is Lebanon. Lebanon also issued a data protection style law in 2018, but that was tied in with its electronic transaction law. And all these laws were based also on the old EU directive model. And then from about 2022, we've really seen a boom with these new or updated laws emerging in a number of these countries. So Egypt passed its standalone data protection law in 2020. And then the UAE issued a federal data protection law in 2021. And before I continue on, one thing to note is that in this region, the law is often issued first, followed later by what they call executive or implementing regulations that provide the operational detail to the law. And without these regulations, many laws are not fully enforceable. So for both Egypt and UAE, the regulations have still not been published. And the publication of these regulations will trigger a grace period for compliance. So for Egypt, once the regulations are published, it will be 1 year for companies to bring their businesses in compliance. And then for UAE, it's 6 months. We hear that for Egypt, those regulations are imminent. For UAE, unfortunately, we still don't know when they will be issued, so we're still a bit in limbo for the UAE at the moment. Then also Saudi Arabia, as some of you probably have heard, Saudi Arabia issued a robust standalone data protection law, the first version of it in 2021. After some strong feedback about some of the stringent requirements, including needing regulatory approval to transfer data outside of Saudi. The law was amended to align more with the GDPR. And the regulations have also been issued by the regulator, including also guidelines and rules on various compliance areas, such as privacy notices and various areas around international transfers. So the law is enforceable as of September 2024. There's still some information that we're still waiting on, however. So, for example, even though the Saudi law now allows for an adequacy system for transfers, we still don't know what those adequate countries are. Then Oman issued its data protection law in 2022, followed not long after by its regulations. Enforcement was originally intended for this February 2025, but it has been deferred to February next year, 2026. And then finally, Jordan, the new kid on the block. Jordan adopted a law in 2023 which provided companies with a 1-year grace period for compliance from the date the law came into force in March last year. So it appears the law is enforceable as of March this year, but we're still waiting for the regulations. But the regulator has already started issuing some procedures and rules, including complaints mechanisms. One thing that's not on the list, but it will be on the next one, is Kuwait. Kuwait has also issued a data protection regulations, but the scope is very limited. It seems to only apply to service providers that are licensed by the telecommunication authority, so it's a very narrow scope compared to the other laws. So what we've seen is a clear trajectory of legal development from fragmented protections to free zone level laws to now full national frameworks. And while the region hasn't harmonized, it has clearly moved into a new phase over where data protection is increasingly central to digital policymaking. But this growth brings complexity. The laws vary in maturity, in detail, and also, as I'll discuss in a bit, in enforcement readiness. Then add in also sectoral rules in areas like banking and healthcare, where there are separate laws that regulate data protection. And the result is a multi-layered and often uneven compliance burden, especially for regional players. At the same time, we're also seeing an increased awareness of privacy rights amongst individuals, and that's leading to a rise in complaints, DSARs, even in countries where the enforcement mechanisms aren't fully operational yet.